Alton Towers has some of the most iconic and unique roller coasters anywhere in the world. However, that does not mean the park is without fault and without problems. I believe Alton Towers has a major problem with a lot of their roller coasters, and this could affect what new rides and new coaster additions the park has to make in the future. In the 2024 season, we are seeing the reopening of Nemesis with a complete and full retrack. That's been occurring throughout the 2023 season. And for as good as this is, preserving such an iconic and fan favourite coaster for the park, I can see a lot of problems with this as well, in the sense that, this isn't a new addition. This is simply a retrack of an old coaster, and, on its own, I think this is perfectly fine for the park. But when we look at the bigger picture for the park, unfortunately, I think this may have to be something that the park has to resort to time and time again with other coasters in their lineup. So in today's video, we're going to be exploring the Alton Towers major roller coaster problem. Welcome to Coasternaut, and if you enjoy this video, please do give it a like and subscribe for future updates and news on Alton Towers and their rides and roller coasters. So then, what are we talking about then with the major roller coaster problem at Alton Towers? So, as I've said previously at the start of this video, 2023, throughout this season, we have been seeing the complete retrack and reconstruction of Nemesis. Now, as we all know, Nemesis is one of the most iconic and well-loved coasters in the park, and one of the most unique roller coasters anywhere in the world. This is a B&M invert coaster that opened at the park in the 1994 season, the year of the UK roller coaster. We had many iconic rides and attractions open that year, such as Nemesis, Shockwave at Drayton Manor, and the big one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, the year of the coaster here in the UK. And this is such a fan favourite ride and coaster here in the UK, and Alton Towers knows that. And I have to give them a lot of credit for, they have realised that this coaster has been operating for 30 years now, a very popular ride at the park, thousands and thousands of rides, if not millions over the years, and they've realised, especially with it being such an intense coaster, it has come to the end of its cycle, it's at the end of its life cycle, and rather than choosing to replace this ride and try and think of something new and replace it with a new coaster or new rides, they've realised how popular it is amongst fans, how unique it is to the park. There is no B&M coaster invert really like this in the world, other than potentially Black Mamba at Phantasialand, that is dug in and around of trenches and is so intense, one of the most intense B&Ms out there. And the park recognises that, and they've done a service to the fans and have chosen to completely retrack this coaster. And like I say, part of me wants to credit the park, and I think as an individual retrack piece of work, this is a great move for the park. There would be a lot of backlash amongst enthusiasts and amongst fans if Nemesis was to ever be removed. There's many other coasters at that park which aren't exactly fan favourites. You look at Rita, that gets a lot of hate. Spinball Whizzer is, a generic Mara spinner coaster. There's a lot of other coasters at that park which people would prefer to get rid of. So for Alton to keep Nemesis, that is a fantastic move. However, let's look at some of their other coasters in their lineup, and this might turn out to be a bit of a bigger problem. Now, Alton is obviously a very unique park, located in sort of a woodland area within Staffordshire here in the UK, and because of local areas and the sort of restrictions placed upon the park, for sound reasoning more than anything, the local areas don't allow the park to build up any ride or attraction above the tree line. Now this has forced Alton Towers to be very creative and very unique with their new additions in their history. You look at Nemesis, they had to use dynamite to blow trenches into the ground, and they've had to build this coaster in and around of tunnels and trenches. This big B&M invert, the Smiler, that's a 14 inverting roller coaster, the most in the world, and this is again built into a very, very compact layout inside of a trench. Oblivion, they've had to dig a massive tunnel underground to allow Oblivion to work. So you look at a lot of their rides and attractions, and they've had to create some very unique attractions, some very world-class attractions that people recognise from all over the world as being part of Alton Towers. And that is great that this park has such a unique sort of history, and these restrictions have to force the park to create some world-class attractions in a very unique way. However, like I say, we look at some of these attractions, and this may now turn out to be a bit of a bigger problem. Let's start with Oblivion. This is probably just as iconic for the park as Nemesis. This is a B&M dive coaster, the first B&M dive coaster, and it has a very, very simple layout. You go up your lift hill, you do a left-hand turn, you do your dive into a tunnel underground. Once you come out of this tunnel, you take a left-hand bank turn, and that's it, into the break room. You know, that is not a very big piece of land, and they have managed to fit in a B&M dive coaster into this layout. Now, you know, when you compare Oblivion to a lot of the modern day B&M dive coasters, or just other coasters in general, it's, you know, probably the weakest of the B&M dive coasters. You know, the layout is very, very simple. Fantastic first drop into the tunnel, very good first drop, but, you know, in terms of a whole complete layout, this is a very, very short ride, and is not very thrilling compared to a lot of the other B&M dive coasters in the world. And, you know, when you compare it to other rides and attractions, people might say, well, you know, this is something which needs to be upgraded in the future. You know, this doesn't provide the same level of thrills as a lot of modern roller coasters do. But look at the plot of land. That is not a very big plot of land to work with. What other ride or attraction could fit in that plot of land? And, you know, once again, the tree line. These rides can't be too tall. This, you know, it uses, I think it's got over 180-foot drop, but that's because it uses this massive tunnel that is built underground. You know, if you were to look at another coaster to potentially be added to this plot of land in future, is it going to have to reuse this tunnel, which Alton Towers has created for Oblivion? And then even again, once it comes out of this tunnel, there's not really any space in that corner of the park. You know, there's a road just, you know, the other side of the tree line of Oblivion, and that's the edge of the park, really. You know, I think Oblivion may end up having to be retracked in the same way Nemesis is when that comes to the end of its life cycle, because, you know, I don't think the park would see the benefit in replacing Oblivion with, you know, flat rides or a dark ride or anything. So, unless, you know, there's a very new coaster technology out there which hasn't been revealed on the market yet, I can't see what, you know, Alton Towers could replace this with. In terms of, yes, you might be able to replace it with something more thrilling, but it might not have, you know, the uniqueness than the, you know, how iconic Oblivion is for the park, and therefore the park probably will see the value in just keeping Oblivion, retracking and replacing Oblivion, in the same way they've done with Nemesis, because having such an iconic coaster at the park, yes, it might not be as thrilling as a potential new upgraded coaster, but, you know, this is something which will bring people into the park. People know Oblivion, people know Nemesis as Alton Towers. Look at the Smiler's plot of land, a 14 inverting roller coaster on such a tiny compact plot of land. You know, there is no coaster I can imagine that will fit on that land and provide more thrills and be as iconic for the park as the Smiler. Obviously, you know, like I say, the only thing which could happen is a new technology. When the black hole was removed, I don't think anyone expected a Coasternaut Infinity Coaster with 14 inversions to pop up on that piece of land, you know. So there's always the chance that, you know, with new technologies and new coaster models in the future, something could be put on that land. Yeah, I think, you know, when we look around at the park, and you look at the Project Horizon corner, where that's going in 2025, and their new indoor coaster, that's built on what's called Coaster Corner. You know, the former Alton Mouse coaster was up on that plot of land. But, you know, but Project Horizon, you know, people have been suggesting it might be an RMC Wild Moose coaster, it might be an Intamin multi-dimension coaster. You know, that's very unique, in the same way that the Smiler was unique. Now, if new technologies come out that, you know, can advance the park to, you know, rather than having to retrack and replace rides the same way they did with Nemesis, if the park can use new technologies to create these new coasters and advance their ways of creating new rides, fantastic, amazing. But, you know, I do think there is something to be said, potentially with some of the coasters at the park, like Oblivion, potentially Galactica. You know, there isn't necessarily many things which could fit on this land in the same way that, you know, would provide such an iconic and unique ride experience for the park. And therefore I can see potentially the Nemesis Retrack potentially coming to other rides in the park, such as Oblivion, Galactica and the Smiler. But what do you guys think on this topic? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Do you think Alton Towers has a coaster problem? You know, because of the restrictions placed upon the park, you know, they might not be able to retrack and rebuild new coasters. They might just have to do the Nemesis, what they've done with Nemesis, and, you know, retrack those coasters the same, rather than building new attractions. But let me know what you think down below. If you did enjoy today's video, please do give it a like. It is very helpful for the channel. Subscribe for more, and thank you very much for watching.